Hey, Nelson, alcoholic addict. That's not my real name. It's a pen name that I came up with for my newsletter here at LOL Sober. A couple of days ago, I was in my bedroom and I was going to jump in the shower, so I closed the door and stripped down to kind of just like my shorts and some socks, getting ready for the shower. And then I remembered I got to pay a bill online. I'm going to forget unless I do it right now. So I sat down in just my shorts. I opened up my laptop and I paid the bill. And at almost exactly the second that I closed up my laptop, my wife came in the room and she got kind of an alarmed look on her face and said, "What's going on in here?" she said. And she wasn't mad. She was just like a little bit mystified. And so was I. I said, nothing. I had something to do on my computer quick. She was like, okay, but her eyebrows scrunched up a little bit, and I didn't know why. I was like a little bit confused, but then it hit me. Okay, so I had gone in the bedroom, closed the door, took off most of my clothes, and I popped open my work laptop on the bed. And when she walked in, I suddenly closed the computer up and stood up from the bed. You can probably imagine what her assumption was. So that was the end of it. But when I got in the shower, I thought about the whole thing, and I thought about how nice it was to have the truth be the same thing that you're saying. The truth is what you're saying, and this is still relatively new for me, in active addiction. You couldn't believe a word I said. If I wasn't lying to cover my tracks, I was embellishing my work performance or overstating how happy I was, how great my life was, or I was leaving out details about why I didn't show up for something, and on and on and on. It was just one big house of cards to keep my life going. And I gotta say, even before I really went off the deep end of addiction, I was often completely full of shit. So it's a muscle I worked for a long time in my life, and it was not new when I started using drugs and alcohol. It was something I'd been doing for a long time. But then I went to rehab, and I realized that if I expected to stay sober, I had to tell the truth all the times, every time, every facet of my life. I had to tell the truth, and I had to tell the truth to my wife, my kids, my sponsor, my boss, my neighbors, everybody. There's no exceptions. And I didn't always like that, because sometimes the truth sucks, Sometimes I'd mess up a work project, and the urge was to try to come up with something to diminish the pain a little bit, blame someone else, or say the power went out at my house. Just come up with anything that numbs a little bit of the sting. But luckily I found I say luckily, but I do think luckily I found out that was not sustainable to live my life. I just can't avoid the sting of the truth. I can't do it. You gotta deal with the truth. And so instead, I started to try to figure out how to feel the sting, just deal with the pain of the moment, and then move on from it, not linger with the pain either. So I gotta say, as I stood in the shower the other day, I had this moment of gratitude that the story I tell every day, it's pretty true. It's pretty accurate, I'm not full of shit anymore. Not as much, anyway. I have mentioned before, I caught myself a few times in recent years fudging the truth a little bit, trying to cover my tracks a little bit, and, it left a yucky feeling. And it was a yucky feeling that I was glad I had, because it meant that I have a radar detector now, and it detects my bad actions and lets me know when I'm full of shit. I'm glad I have that internal radar. In the one instance I can remember, I had told my wife I would be home at 6 from work, and at 5:30 I texted her and said, "Hey, I'm heading home." And then I stopped and I got gas and I grabbed a soda and I just sat in my car and screwed around on my phone for a half an hour. And on the drive home, it dawned on me I said I was going to be home at 6 and I'm not even going to be close. And on the way, I hit I'd say 60 seconds of traffic, like one little slowdown on the highway. And so when I walked in at 6:45 or so, my wife said, "Hey, what happened, man? I thought you left at 5:30 and it's a half-hour drive." And so, like, why is it 6:45, not 6? And my first reaction, which I did, I'm not proud of it, I blurted out, "Well, I hit a bunch of traffic on the highway." And she nodded her head and accepted that answer. We've all had traffic before, so okay. Was my answer true? I guess, sort of, but not really. I left out the part that stung a little bit, but the part where I had to fess up to screwing around on my phone instead of coming home when I said I would. And that sat with me a little bit for a few days. I did not like the feeling of lying, even if it was hidden in some truth. So, man, looking back on that day with my laptop, it felt pretty good to actually, whatever she was coming up with in her head, I wasn't doing, and I was actually paying a bill. So, thank you for letting me share.